Pleased to be joined by A.G. Gankarski of FloridaPolitics.com. The citywide elections in Jacksonville are just days away. Early voting is wrapping up. And AG, the race for mayor is seemingly as tight as it could be this stage in the game. What's your kind of broad view of these seven candidates and their push to become Jacksonville's next mayor?
Well, it's been interesting because Donna Deegan, the conventional wisdom has been all she had to do is basically get to the runoff. It looks like she's going to do that. She's polling in the 30s, so that's good for that. I don't know if she can lift that number up because Audra Gibson's in the race also. Audra Gibson's going to take some of the Democratic votes. You got three strong Republicans. Daniel Davis has a lot of money. He's expected by most of the polling get to the runoff. Al Ferrero, he has run a really strong populist campaign, and he could cut into that vote total. Leanna Cumber, she hasn't polled very well, but she keeps saying that the momentum is with her. There are undecided voters that she could poll. So, I'm watching to see what she does in Tuesday's election. But it really looks like it's going to be a runoff of Deegan and Davis right now, unless Al Ferrero somehow can really outperform expectations. One thing I have been watching in early voting is that it's been low turnout so far. Democrats have not dominated it the way they might have wanted to, and Republicans always dominate on election day. This year, of course, it's probably going to rain, but that doesn't keep the GOP away from the polls. Those super voters get out there. So it's going to be interesting to watch, but I think you can see Republicans outperforming the polling a little bit, Democrats, including Deegan, maybe hitting a ceiling that was in the polling.
Leanna Cumber has said, at least to our station, that she believes the JEA investigation into her potential role in that sale and her husband's potential role was weaponized politics, to paraphrase her. How much of an effect on her campaign do you think that investigation posed as it relates to voters and their outlook on her possibility of becoming mayor?
It feels like another nail in the coffin more than anything definitive because she wasn't doing that great to begin with. She's polling low before they trotted out this investigation. I would agree that it's very politically timed and very convenient, and there's no action that is going to happen in the near future because it is so close to the election. But when you look at that particular thing, it was another thing that Cumber had to argue against, another thing that Cumber was having to say was against her in this race. And running as an establishment Republican, as she basically did, somebody who drew in a lot of donations from not just in the state but elsewhere, it raises real questions as to, if she could have overcome that investigation to begin with.
Let's switch over to property appraiser right now. A very heated race between three candidates who seem to have a different approach to the way that they're running their campaign to this point. What's the key part of this race that you're focusing on?
Well, I want to see if Joyce Morgan can actually get to 50%. The UNF poll had her at 43%, and there were a lot of undecideds. I had Jason Fisher and Danny Beckton in the teens. Fisher's been advertising heavily. He's been branding around Ron DeSantis. Beckton's been branding around Jerry Holland, the incumbent, who backs him for the office. So this conceivably could help them. I mean, Morgan has not spent a lot of money in her campaign. So I'm wondering if Morgan can actually convert that 43% into closing it out in March. If not, this will be a very partisanized race. And that's one where Morgan, ironically, has a better chance of winning it outright in March than she might in May, given where things are going.
Let's talk about some of the city council races. When you and I sat down late February, early March, we mentioned that District 7 between Jimmy Peluso and John Phillips was very tight and bitter at that point. Flash forward a few weeks now to present day. Has it gotten any more friendly at all, or have they doubled down with the bitterness?
It is still bitter. It is still expensive, and it is going to be ugly to the end. Basically, Phillips is claiming that the mayor's office is backing Peluso through back channels. Claimed that Brian Hughes, the chief administrative officer, was lobbying a city employee who was backing Phillips. Hughes denies this. And the Peluso side points out that until 2020, Phillips was a registered Republican. He endorsed Lenny Curry in 2015. He got placed on the Human Rights Commission as a seeming payback for that endorsement. So it's been one where both sides have basically impeached each other's Democratic bona fides. Only one's really going to emerge here. I think Joe Hogan will make it to the runoff. So it'll either be Peluso, who has dominated in the western part of the district, Riverside, Avondale, or Phillips, who's made his play toward more the urban core area of the district. Phillips has spent $250,000 of his own money. That's not an advantage that most city council candidates have, certainly not Peluso. In fact, the only candidate that kind of self-fund has been Leanna Cumber in the mayoral race, another lawyer also. So, yeah, this is going to be ugly to the end. I don't know how Democrats bring it together. I saw Nikki Fried a few days ago in Riverside. She was talking about how the party needed to unite after the election Tuesday. John Phillips was sitting right behind her, and John Phillips did not move his face once. So I don't know if party unity is going to happen there.
Let's switch on over to District 5. Article on floridapolitics.com, I believe, is titled "Too Many Carlucci's" with a question mark. And you bring up a good point that with Matt Carlucci and now his son entering the political realm, what possible issues could arise with a father-son tandem on council should his son win the election?
You got to say that Joe Carlucci is the favorite right now. He's got the endorsement of police and fire. That's big in a Republican district. It's a Republican-only race. But if both of them are on city council, then you have to basically trust them not to talk about issues when they're home or when they're out of city hall, outside of public notice meetings, because the only way that two council members can legally talk about issues is through public notice meetings. That's the Sunshine Law. When you get to council leadership races, right now, like the race for council president or vice president, these races are always very interesting and often contested. What kind of promises would, say, Joe Carlucci have to make to Matt Carlucci to get his endorsement for council vice president in 3 years should he win? I mean, these are real issues. I don't know if they really resonate with voters. The Morgan Roberts campaign raised him pretty late in the campaign. And I don't know if that was the right move. She probably should have raised him earlier, but campaigns go with strategies. And if you go too negative, that seems to be what voters hear, is that you're just basically campaigning negative. So you really have to pick your spots. And the Carlucci's are a well-known, well-respected family in the city. The history of public service is very deep. So that may have informed that strategy early on.
When people look for your articles on floridapolitics.com, what are some of the latest headlines that they can see if they search for your work?
You're basically going to be seeing a lot of stuff about perhaps early voting, about turnout, about last-minute ads, things like that. We're getting to the home stretch, though. So these campaigns are basically winding up. You got Souls to the Polls Sunday. Early voting wraps up this weekend. Then it's just Tuesday's election. So there's not much left for any of these campaigns to do. They pretty much have set their own courses already.
A.G. Gankarski of floridapolitics.com, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Hey, thank you for having me.